Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
It's time for the Sports Blitz, the only live-streamed local sports show in Arkansas, with all the latest on the sports stories that matter to you. Live from the Lions Den Golf Club studio, here are your hosts, Mark Freeman and Weldon Braxton.
We're going to forego talking about sports today and talk about Anchorman 2 coming out Wednesday.
Oh,
Free
really?
plug. Yeah, that's what we're going to. Welcome into the Sports Blitz on a Monday. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Matty Lassiter, I like to call him Matois, here in the Cogswell Motors studio. He may turn on his microphone and talk to us today. Who knows? Got a whole lot of stuff to talk about, so chances are we won't give Matty any time to talk. We're going to visit with Russellville Cyclones head basketball coach Cody Mann in the second segment. His Cyclones won the Cyclone Classic, a great tournament every year, and they beat Sylvan Hill. Oh, no, they did not beat Sylvan Hills. Clarksville beat Sylvan Hills in the first round. They beat Camden Fairview. I keep mixing those two up in the finals of the Cyclone Classic, and we'll talk to him about that and his season so far here in just a little bit. We'll recap some big news that happened over the weekend, the biggest of which, Jameis Winston wins the Heisman Trophy. We kind of knew that was going to happen. It was just about the margin of victory. And Mack Brown, despite all the rumors and controversy one way or the other, we heard that he was not going to step down, and apparently that was all sort of a, we like this word in recruiting, smokescreen for the fact that he wanted to step down on his own, of his own account, and not because he was being forced out.
Right.
He had his own freedom. He decided after all to step down. Our CrossFit Russellville poll question today, a question we want to deal with in depth, and we both disagree on this, so it's a good topic of conversation. Who's going to be the next Texas head coach? It's a good question because Nick Saban apparently has agreed to a deal. Now, agreed and signed are two different things, and definitely for Nick Saban, you need to worry about that if you're the University of Alabama or an Alabama fan, because ask the Miami Dolphins or ask LSU or anywhere else Nick Saban has been in his entire life. Agreed and signed are two completely different things. So we'll deal with that. We'll look at the Cowboys blowing another loss. I'll give you blowing another win. They don't blow losses. They're really good at earning those. And I'll give you my reason for why I'm not mad at them today. I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. Been a Cowboys fan my whole life. I'm not mad at them today. And we'll look at the Arkansas Razorback basketball team, who is projected to be an 11th seed in the NCAA tournament as of right now in college basketball. So, we got a full show.
Yeah, I'm ready to get to it. I look forward to having Coach Mann on. You mentioned the Cyclones winning the Cyclone Classic after getting off to a tough start this year, so it's good to see those guys in rhythm, and we'll see what Coach Mann has to say about his squad. And, of course, Mark, Texas is the big fish. The job is officially open. Last time we were on the air, we had a good idea that it would open up, but it wasn't officially available. Mack Brown had not stepped down. Of course, that process took place over the weekend, and it was interesting to read Mack Brown's statement. Some of the highlights he brought out from it was, when I got to Texas, it was a divided university, divided program as far as the football is concerned. Over the last 16 years, we were able to bring it together. My presence and me being here once again has caused a little bit of a division, and so because of that, I don't want it to get back to the way it was before I got here, which is a nice statement to hear. But the bottom line is 8-4, 9-3, being somewhere along the lines of 30-20 over the last few years. That just doesn't get it done at Texas. And you and I are going to talk about what kind of coach does Texas need, because I thought you made some great points earlier in the pre-show. I won't give them away. But can Texas get the best of both worlds? Because there's a certain style of coach they want, but there's certain results they want as well. And can they find a guy to give them both? I think that'll be the point to see.
You talked about negativity surrounding the Texas program, and we want to deal a little bit in the Hog Talk portion of the show with some negativity surrounding the Razorback football program. Arkansas lost a commitment. Jared Cornelius, wide receiver from Shreveport Evangel, over the weekend. He flipped his commitment to TCU as they're going to run the Sonny Cumbie. Apparently, is going to be their offensive coordinator. He's a former Texas Tech guy who just flung it all over the place, and that's apparently what they're going to do. Looking at Cliff Kingsbury and what he's been able to accomplish so far, it's sort of catching on. And apparently, he would rather go play there than come play for Arkansas. Can't necessarily blame him. It has caused me to change the way I want to view recruiting, and I follow it pretty closely, but it's not worth it. And then another negative, call it a negative for the University of Arkansas. It's a great thing for defensive line coach Charlie Partridge, who has accepted the job at Florida Atlantic University to be their head coach. It's a great opportunity for him. We'll talk about that. And really, the reason I say it's a negative is because as an Arkansas Razorback fan, I can care less when you leave, bye, but I still have to deal with the Razorbacks not being very good. So we'll talk about the quote-unquote negativity, and we'll deal with plenty of stuff today on the Sports Blitz. First, though, let's take a look at our Peters Family Living Local Sports look. I mentioned a couple weeks ago Michael Perry and Freddie Lee and Kendrick Lee all committing to play basketball at Arkansas Tech University. Michael Perry playing very well, averaging well over 20 points so far for the Pottsville Apaches. They played 3 games in 3 nights last week, and we were able to talk about them, but I think I had them a little bit out of order. They lost 76-73 to Maumelle at Maumelle, and I was talking to Coach Garrett Hill the other day, assistant head coach of the Pottsville Apaches and head junior high coach, and he said, that game was a little misleading because there were times Pottsville was right there with them the whole game, and there were times where Maumelle would make a run, and it was because early in that game, Michael Perry caught an elbow in the eye and was bleeding, and they had to kind of butterfly stitch it, glue it shut. They didn't have any Vaseline or anything like that to keep the blood stopped, so they put a bandage on it, send it back out in the game, it'd start trickling, he'd have to come out. And he said it was like clockwork. Every time Michael would leave the game, 4 or 5 point run here, and they'd go from up 4 to down 4. And he'd come back in, and it ended up being a 76-73 game, but it was a little different. He said he was pretty confident that they would be able to get a win at Pottsville against Maumelle. Then the very next night, they take on 5A Greenbrier. And that's a tough one because Greenbrier is a improving basketball team in a classification higher, and Greenbrier got them. And then the next night they play against BB. They get a 15-point win, but 3 games in 3 nights is not easy to do. It's all because of the weather. The snow games a couple weeks ago that got pushed back, but it was a tough week for Pottsville. Went 1-2, but they learned a little bit about their team.
Yeah, I mean, it's that time of the year. You're playing in, I say tournament-style basketball. I believe these were just 3 games. But
yeah, just regular games.
But even so, when you play games in such a short amount of time, it does allow you to improve and move on. In a normal season, you play, you're off a day or so, you watch film, you practice, you get better for the game in a few days. But in this situation, you play, you see what you did wrong, you correct your mistakes, you do whatever, then you try it again this night. Then the same thing happens. You go through the same process. So it is good this time of year to be able to improve in a short amount of time and get ready for the long haul of the season. Obviously, in Class 4A, you're starting league play a little bit earlier, so you need to be sharper at an earlier part of the year. But we talked about Pottsville before with Perry and Cole and those guys, some of the young players they have stepping up. And like I said on Friday, I think they'll be fine in that 4A4.
Yeah, they'll be pretty good. In the Cyclone Classic we mentioned earlier, we're going to talk to Coach Mann here in a little bit. If I can remember correctly, Russellville in the first round beat Mountain Home. In the second round, they beat Subiaco. And then in the third round, in the finals, they beat Camden Fairview, while Clarksville goes ahead and gets third place in the tournament. They beat Sylvan Hills in the first round. They lost to Camden Fairview in the second round. And then in the third place game, they beat Subiaco Academy. So it was a weird weekend for the Clarksville Panthers, as I'm sure they were about like me. I expected Clarksville to go in there and win the tournament. It's one of those things that maybe we're spoiled as Clarksville alumni, but when they go into a tournament, you just expect them to compete and have a chance to win it. And looking at the tournament, I thought Clarksville would meet in the finals, and although it was at Russellville, I thought Clarksville would find a way to win it with 2 state championships from all these really heavy contributors, and Jaron Thompson, Freddie, and Kendrick Lee. Thought they'd find a way to win that tournament. Give a lot of credit to Russellville. We'll talk about the game and how that championship game against Camden Fairview went. But Clarksville did not play the way they know they can and should against Camden Fairview. And then you come in and watch. I came in to watch the third place game, and I got there right about the time that the ball was being tipped. And I looked out there, and you've got a sophomore point guard, you've got a sophomore shooting guard, you've got junior big man, senior big man, and somebody else, and Jaron Thompson. And then you've got on the bench Kendrick Lee, Freddie Lee, Deontay Woodbridge, and the other talented freshman, Casey Benton. 4 of the best 5 players on the team on the bench. I don't know if it was just Coach Davis trying to prove a point or, get his message across, but I do know that there were some guys that were not ready to practice on time. It's one of those things where if you're on time, you're late, and they were on time. So he wanted them to be there and get their head on straight after a loss. They weren't quite there on time, and he got his point across, sitting them the first half of the game. Clarksville was able to come back and win the game anyway. But, to me, we were talking about this before the show, Weldon, I'm happy when they do that kind of thing because, one, it's good for a coach to get things straight early on in the year when it's not a conference game and it doesn't necessarily matter, so to speak. And it's also good to get some of those other guys' experience.
And it's absolutely necessary. Look, I don't care, what you've accomplished. I don't care, this goes for all teams. I'm not just talking about Clarksville. I mean, it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. You still have obligations to meet. You still have to fall within the concept of the team, and it's important for a coach to establish that. And, oftentimes when you have, athletes who have had success and who have done different things, there's a need at times to rein things in and say, okay, we've accomplished a lot, but at the same time, we still have protocol to follow. We still have to follow the rules and do things the way we've laid them out for you to do. And if not, there's consequences that you have to face. And I think it's important, Mark, as you said, to go ahead and establish that early in the year because these things will manifest if they go unchecked. I mean, it's really easy to sit up and say, you know what, guys, we've won a couple of state championships in the last few years. We've got a lot of the guys back from that team. We've got quite a bit of talent. We know we're going to be there, so it's all good. Let's just chill out and roll with the punches. That's not how you do it. I think that'll cost you in the end, and I think it's good that Coach Davis got on top of things like this early because I think it'll help them in the long run.
Well, I'm looking for long runs from all these teams, these local teams in the area. If you want your team covered better, look, Pottsville does a really good job, I've said this more than once, of sending us their scores and stats and a coach's quote from the junior high level all the way up. I get junior high boys and girls, senior high boys and girls information a couple times a week, and we publish that. Russellville does a decent job at doing it, Clarksville, and I try to go watch at least one team a week play so that I can get information myself. But if you want your teams covered, you just ask your coach to send us information to mark@rivervalleyleader.com. That's my email address. Or you can call 968 News and let me know what's going on, where your team's playing, because I would love to help cover more of these teams. But like I said, I've only got 2 legs. I'm only one person. Johnny Moxon's only one man. Varsity Blues quote on a Monday, so sorry. Anyway, you can tell your coach to email me. If he'll send me that information, the score, any stats he wants included, and a quote, I can make something out of that any old time, and we would love to have it. So that's mark@rivervalleyleader.com. Arkansas Tech news, the Suns are playing in the TARS Holiday Classic hosted by Rollins College. That's the women, the Golden Suns, playing this weekend at a number 16 ranked Rollins College. And then the Wonder Boys are playing Thursday. There's a game change as far as the time. It was originally set for a 7 o'clock tip against Angelo State. It's been moved to 5:30. So if you're going to watch the Wonder Boys there at Tucker Coliseum, you're going to have to get out there a little earlier. 5:30 tip against Angelo State. And I have buried the lead, but it's not without purpose. The final part of our high school football coverage for the year in our Peters Family Living Local Sports Look is a state championship for the Morrilton Devil Dogs. Big, big win for you guys over there in Morrilton. 27-24 win in the 5A state championship over the Batesville Pioneers. What a way to go out for the Morrilton Devil Dogs. I watched them in the first game of the season against Russellville, knew that they had a lot of talent. I heard a whole lot about Batesville, and I know some people from Batesville, a perennial power. It's a huge deal for Morrilton to win this game. Not only do they win a state championship, but it's not like they beat some up-and-comer. They beat a perennial power.
And that town's really excited in Morrilton too, Mark. And you're right, just a testament to the work they've put in. Coach McNabb and company, they've done a really good job with that team. You mentioned the game against Russellville early in the year. It was a shootout, and they got better from that. And they did have the talent. You could see that, if they just keep getting better week after week, and they gained momentum and ended up winning the state championship. So, obviously, Mark, a huge congrats out to Devil Dog Nation.
We got to hit a break. Congratulations again to the Morrilton Devil Dogs. Maybe we can get Coach McNabb on to talk a little bit about that championship if he's come off Cloud 9 Saturday. Man, I don't know if I would be off for a couple weeks, man. I'd be just pumped. Time. Yeah, I might still be crying. Who knows? I'm a ball bag. Speaking of ball bag, I want to talk about how excited I am that the University of Texas is looking for a new coach. Actually, I wish Mac Brown would have stayed there forever, but we'll talk about that. Today's CrossFit Russellville poll question: who's going to be the new coach of the University of Texas? Also, Jameis Winston winning the Heisman Trophy. Not a surprise. I'm a little surprised in what I heard from some Heisman pundits about who would win the Heisman and where the things would shake out. They were completely wrong. But we'll talk about Jameis Winston winning the Heisman and the next Texas head coach right after the break.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. You know, we've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK for today this morning,
here's what you missed.
Updated news.
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
Developing stories.
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
And weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on. KRK4 today.
Over 69 years of treating you like family, Peters Family Living's main goal is customer service. That is their promise to their customers. They offer in-house financing on furniture and appliances and a 30-day money-back guarantee. For a friendly, no-pressure atmosphere, visit Peters Family Living today at 201 North Arkansas Avenue, Russellville. Online at petersfamilyliving.com or call 479-968-2929.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
We're expecting a call from Russellville head basketball coach Cody Mann in just the next couple of moments. But before we get to his team winning the Cyclone Classic, which we talked a little bit about in our Peters Family Living Local Sports Look, we need to talk about the Heisman Trophy ceremony. It took place Saturday. Jameis Winston wins the Heisman Trophy, won all 6 regions. It was basically just a conversation about how wide the margin would be. A.J. McCarron was second. I did hear a Heisman pundit on another radio show talk about how he thought A.J. McCarron would be 5th and Jordan Lynch would be 2nd. I think that was opposite of the way it ended up being. But the bottom line and the question was, would Jameis Winston's off-field quote-unquote transgressions or things that could have possibly been held against him. Now, he wasn't charged in this alleged sexual assault or rape, but would those things be held against him in the voting? Turns out not enough to keep him from winning the Heisman Trophy.
Now, Jameis Winston, he wins the Heisman Trophy. We expected it. We saw it coming. Just a dominant regular season. I have to give him his props. Yes, he did it in the ACC. Yes, his level of competition was questionable. But still, I mean, the way Florida State rolled up people, you can't ignore it. Just, you watch Jameis Winston play, you can tell you're just looking at a different kind of quarterback. You're looking at a guy who just has it all. He has the physical tools. He has the arm strength. He has the athleticism. He has the football IQ. He has the natural leadership that guys kind of gravitate towards. He's a total package, even though he's a redshirt freshman. He displayed that. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. Not really surprised that A.J. McCarron finished second. That's where I had him finish. I think you were in the same boat as well. I don't know where the pundit you read, I don't know where he was getting his stuff from, because I just didn't see any way that A.J. McCarron didn't finish second, primarily because those who still were uncomfortable with Jameis Winston, I thought they would fall back to A.J. McCarron. Now, A.J. has had a very good career. He has a great career. He's had a very good season, but still, compared to Jameis Winston, he was more of a fallback candidate. He was safe. He had an impressive resume. I thought he would be the guy. But it turns out Winston had the fifth greatest margins in the modern era as far as first place to second. And, of course, to round it out, you had Jordan Lynch, Andre Williams, Johnny Manziel, and Trey Mason. You know, and it's really not a knock against Trey Mason either. Look, I've never heard, and I said this before, I've never heard of anybody finishing high in the Heisman who had no Heisman hype before the previous week. We've heard of Heisman candidates before the season, middle of the season, but anytime you don't have Heisman hype the last week of the season, you're probably not going to win the trophy. But the fact that you even got to New York is a testament of what you were able to do in the SEC title game against Missouri. Johnny Manziel, I think we both agreed he really didn't have much of a chance. Yes, his numbers were there, but his team had 4 losses. He didn't have that signature moment and all the things in the offseason that took place with him. Andre Williams, a very unique young man. Have to give him his props, 2,000 yards, finishing 4th. So, again, it was a good group of Heisman candidates, but Jameis Winston just stood out above all the rest.
And he won with 668 first place. There were 11 folks, I think I saw, that left Jameis Winston completely off their ballot, including Eric Crouch, the former Nebraska Heisman Trophy winner. No, excuse me. He was left off of 115 of the 900 ballots, but of the other 668 had him first. So basically everybody who had him on their ballot at all and didn't leave him off for moral reasons, he was first place. 79 votes, first place votes for A.J. McCarron. And this sort of speaks to my point that there should have been 4 people invited to the Heisman Trophy ceremony. They should have been Winston, McCarron, Lynch, and Williams. Manziel, congratulations, you won it last year. You put up great numbers in a system that allowed you to. Trey Mason, you put up 1,600 yards, including 300 in the SEC championship game, and got yourself in the conversation. But those guys should have been stuck at home, and there should have been 4. I don't understand why they brought 6 when they knew who was going to win, and it was going to be by a lot.
Yeah.
But I guess they give more people an opportunity to go to New York and have a nice weekend and have somebody buy them a suit legally. Congratulations to Jameis Winston. Trent Dilfer said after the Elite 11 camp he could be the best quarterback ever before he ever played a college football game. So he knew talent when he saw it. Game recognizes game, right? Is that what they say?
Well, I don't know if that's the case with Trent.
Trent Dilfer, I don't know that he's got much. He did win a Super Bowl. He was the original game manager, but he got himself a Super Bowl. Let's switch gears here in college football. Mack Brown. It was a conversation topic of conversation all last week, whether or not he would end up as the head coach in Texas in 2014. And, there's a lot of jostling. Would Nick Saban replace him? Nick Saban comes out, no, I'm not going to replace him. And Alabama offers a $7 million a year deal that Nick Saban has agreed to but has not signed yet. And now Mack Brown has, of his own volition, just come out and said, I'm going to coach the Alamo Bowl, and then I'm going away. I'm going to coach my guys against Oregon, and then I'm going to resign. The conversation now becomes who's going to be the next head coach at the University of Texas.
That's the $1 million question, Mark. And I have to preface my comments by saying right now I have no idea. And nobody really does have any idea. There's so many names you can throw out, Mark. I've got a few in mind that I'll throw around. I know you've got some too, but right now, Mark, I believe we have a caller on the line.
We do, and that's where a deep tease comes in. We're talking about the Texas head coach. We'll get back to it here in just a little bit. We are glad to be joined right now by Russellville Cyclones head basketball coach, Cody Mann. Coach Mann, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Doing very well. Well, you got a big win this weekend in the Cyclone Classic. I want to get your thoughts on just an incredible run for you guys, a 66-46 win in the Cyclone Classic championship game against Camden Fairview. 9 threes in the first half. You guys just came out and lit it up.
Well, we finally shot the basketball like I thought we could have all year. Our football kids are starting to get their legs underneath them a little bit, and with the Republic Missouri tournament being canceled the week before, that gave us some practice time and gave us some time to gel as a team and do some things to kind of bond, and it definitely paid off this past weekend.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. It seemed like, and I know that your football guys are players. I watched Kentrell Scott in the second round game hit 5 threes, seemed like right in a row. And you've got guys like Tony Jones who is able to contribute as well. So was it just about getting these guys some reps, or what did you guys do on that week off where the Missouri tournament was canceled to really kind of get them to gel together and come together and play well in this tournament?
Well, what people don't understand, we've put in a whole new system. We've been in a motion kind of grinded out type of team the first 2 years, and we put in dribble drive, and we want to push it a little bit, and we were trying to press early in the year, and we weren't having too much success with it. But the football boys, we started implementing the system in the spring of last year. Well, they were in spring football. And then in the summer, they weren't here a whole lot because they were doing lots of 7-on-7 stuff getting ready for football. So for those guys, when they got in here to basketball, they were just learning the system for the first time themselves. So it took a while to get them acclimated to the terms, the terminology, where people were going to be. And now they're starting to get it a little bit, and you can kind of see that.
Well, you could definitely see that there was one of the things I noticed about you guys playing this weekend, and I watched several of the games and other teams play. You guys get after it. They're playing hard the whole time they're in the game. You've got at least 8 or 9 guys that you play, and it seems like you've got confidence in. But what does this kind of tournament win do for your team's confidence and do for your confidence in the guys that you can put on the floor? And so, obviously early on in the season, you want to see who you can find, who you can count on in game time situations.
Well, this tournament was great because I finally found a rotation that works well for us. Really great teams, and they usually have about 7 people who play lots of minutes. And, you have that 8th guy who will come in for people if they're in foul trouble. And then early in that year, we were kind of figuring out who was going to play, what kids were going to be able to step up that, didn't have the chance last year. And as far as from a confidence standpoint, the kids are excited. It's been a while since we've won our own tournament, and this tournament we had this year was probably the strongest field from top to bottom that we've had in a long, long time. You had a team like Sheridan who has 5 seniors who have started since been in 10th grade, and they went 0-3 in the tournament, and they're supposed to make a lot of noise in that 6A South, but. Confidence. The kids are extremely confident. As a coach, right after the game, I got on the phone with Coach Gore from Bologna and Coach Eccles from Hot Springs, and was getting tape on Bryant. So now all my focus is on Bryant, and they're, truthfully, they'll be the most athletic team that we've played all year.
Coach, congratulations again on the tournament victory in the Cyclone Classic. And now when you step back and look at this team and you look at how your new players have learned the offense, you look at how you're shooting the ball well, how good can the Russellville Cyclones be this year in conference play?
Well, a lot of that's going to depend on obviously how well we shoot the ball all year long. From a defensive standpoint, we're going to have to get after it on defense because we're so small. What's going to give us trouble is when teams have an inside-outside game that we'll have to dig down on the post to help, or we got to front the post and have built-in help side. And if they can shoot it, then we got to be able to close out those shooters pretty fast. I think this team, even when we were 0-3, we played a really tough schedule. With Rogers Heritage, they're a well-seasoned team, and, lots of seniors who have been through the grind for them. And if we would have been about a week later with the football boys in here, I think we would have got them at home. Springdale's really good. And then we played Ozark, Missouri team that was just unbelievable and didn't miss a shot. So, I was disappointed we were 0-3, but I knew that we had some good pieces on this team. It was just a matter of finding out who could do what and when. And, and then with the one thing about this past tournament we had, every game somebody else stepped up. Kentrell Scott, the first game, he played unbelievable. That's going to carry him over for the rest of the year. Of course, Andy Campbell does what he can do best. He put the ball in the hole. The one thing Andy's doing really well this year, he's playing defense and he's putting the ball on the floor and going to the basket. Last year, he never did that. Last year, he played like a 15-year-old kid for most of the year. And then the last game, Marquise Rhodey, a 15-year-old sophomore, stepped up and had a huge game for us. And when you have that, and and Tony Jones hit 4 threes in that first quarter for us. But when you have kids that can score in different ways and have so many kids who can step up and give you good things offensively and defensively, it can definitely carry you pretty fast throughout the year.
And, Coach, that's what I was going to ask you about. Talk about a little bit of the personnel on this team. We know some of the names from last year, Andy Campbell, obviously, Tony Jones, Kentrell Scott. But how have those guys improved from last year to this year, and then some of the newcomers that you have contributing this year?
Well, I think, one kid that has probably improved the most is Coach E's, Temple Laws. Coach E, he's probably the fastest kid in the school, but last year, he didn't really understand that, to play for me, you better have a high motor always, and that's in practice and in games. You just can't turn it on when you want to. And he had a hard time figuring that out, man. So we didn't mesh too well last year, but he's figured it out, and this year he provides a lot of great things for us. He's so athletic, and he can get from one end to the other end in about 2 seconds with the basketball in his hand, and he's definitely helped our team out. Marquise Rhodey, he's a sophomore kid, and he's about 6, probably, I list him as 6'2", but he's probably about 6'1", and he just has a high motor. That kid never gets tired, and he plays his best when you locate the best defender or best offensive player, and you put him on him, and you say, I don't want him scoring. And Marquise loves that challenge, and he'll do everything he can. I got a little boy that moved in from Pottsville named Cole McCown. And Cole is he comes in and he plays a 5 when Marquise is in foul trouble or somebody's in foul trouble. And he's just a real heady type player, has a high basketball IQ. They're definitely going to help us out for 3 years straight. Cody Underhill is about a 5'9" shooting guard for us. He's one of those kids that he's not going to show up in the stats a whole lot, but he does a lot of things that coaches love, like knows every position on the court. So when you run a set play, if I got, a hodgepodge of kids in there, Cody can go fill a spot somebody doesn't know. And as coaches, we love those type of kids. Kentrell Scott definitely improved his game from last year. He's shooting the ball extremely well. He's becoming a point guard. One thing about Kentrell's going to play hard. He's going to get in your face on defense. He's going to do 1 or 2 or 3, things on offense that I might not like sometimes, but I've learned to live with that because it gives us so much more this year. Tony Jones, I was waiting for him to have a breakout game this year, and hopefully that game from Saturday definitely carries him over. And Andy just needs to keep on improving. If he can keep improving the way he has up to this point, I think he's going to be fine. And with all those pieces and they're on the same track and they're all playing well together, we've got a chance to be pretty special at times.
Well, Coach, before we get you out of here, I want to ask about a possible injury that I saw in the game that I got to watch, and I say that sort of tongue-in-cheek because you talked about Rhodey, and that kid can get up, and I watched him, and I wondered if his head was all right because there was a shot that he went up and blocked, and I'm pretty sure he hit his head on the backboard, so I wanted to make sure that he was okay and didn't have any concussion symptoms or anything like that.
Yeah, he's fine. If he had a concussion, he wouldn't even know it. That kid is... he's something else. He's so he's just a raw talent right now. You know, he's been one of those kids who has always been kind of stuck inside a little bit. So, definitely in the spring and the summer, we're going to work on his outside game quite a bit, and hopefully that'll definitely take him to the next level.
Well, Coach, we congratulate you once more on a great tournament win here in the Cyclone Classic. We hope to talk to you again very soon about a great run in the 7A, 6A conference slate. We appreciate you taking time to join us today, Coach.
All right, I appreciate you guys having me. You have a good day.
Not a problem. You too. That is Coach Cody Mann of the Russellville Cyclones. Taking time out of his day. Thank him for he had lunch duty, so he had to go take care of his school duties and then
Keep
give us a
those kids
call.
in line.
Whip them into shape if he has to. I'm glad he gave us some names. I like to get coaches he'll talk about their players a little bit and tell us about specific players, and he did a good job of that. Again, congratulations to the Cyclones on a big win. The Clarksville Panthers finished third in the Cyclone Classic as well, so it was a good week. For a good weekend for high school sports in the area. We'll be right back, and we'll talk about who the next head coach at the University of Texas will be.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russellville and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
It's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
Over 69 years of treating you like family, Peters Family Living's main goal is customer service. That is their promise to their customers. They offer in-house financing on furniture and appliances and a 30-day money-back guarantee. For a friendly, no-pressure atmosphere, visit Peters Family Living today at 201 North Arkansas Avenue, Russellville. Online at petersfamilyliving.com or call 479-968-2929.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
So it's finally official. Mac Brown no longer going to be the head coach of the Texas Longhorns. It's a bittersweet day for Arkansas Razorback fans. If you're like me, you want Texas to suck every year. And 8-4 from Texas, I'll deal with that every single year. The Alamo Bowl, they can have them. Mac Brown has resigned, which means that the University of Texas is going to go after a big fish. All signs pointed to them going after Nick Saban. He apparently has agreed to, and as I've pointed out a couple times already in the show, not signed, but agreed to a $7 million per year deal at Alabama. That doesn't mean that Texas won't come in and say, we'll give you $9-10 million a year to come play or to come coach at Texas. But it brings up a big question: who will be the next head football coach at the University of Texas? Weldon and I both disagree a little bit on this. Go ahead and give your name, and then I'll give my my thoughts.
Well, it's a one-name deal.
Well, I mean, you can give your list or whatever, but we had like philosophical differences in who was going to be the coach and why.
All right. Well, I've got 3 early candidates. There's one kind of floating out there, but let's be clear on something. There's a huge pool of candidates. I say it's huge. There's a pool of nice candidates out there who have recently signed contract extensions. So what that means is they're not necessarily off the table. It just means you have to pay a whole lot to get them free, and you have to pay a whole lot for them to coach at your school, which Texas is not above doing. But you look at a Gus Malzahn, an Art Briles, or Kevin Sumlin, all have signed long extensions with huge fat buyouts attached to them. So again, not saying they're out of play, but they're a little bit on ice because of what it would take to bring them in. My top 3, I'm looking at number 3, Dabo Swinney at Clemson. He's done a good job offensively with that team. You look at where they weren't even able to get into the ACC mix. They would always have talent, but couldn't get up top in the ACC. He's gotten them in that neighborhood now. He's done a really good job. I think Mike Gundy, we hear drama with Mike Gundy every year with Oklahoma State. It seems that's quieted down just a little bit, but if the Texas job were to come across, he may be interested. My number 1 candidate right now, I'm looking at Greg Schiano, and here's why. Greg Schiano, obviously, he's the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. He built the University of Rutgers, the football program. He's made them relevant in the conference and even on the national scale, something that a lot of people didn't think was possible in this modern era. He's been in Tampa Bay 2 years. He may or may not get fired, but even if he doesn't, it's one of those Nick Saban Miami Dolphins situations. Nick Saban wasn't going to get fired after 2 years at Miami, but it still wasn't heading in the direction he wanted it to go. It wasn't moving as quickly as he wanted it to go in Miami. And, of course, he has the whole deal with Wayne Huizenga, the owner then, and he decides to go to Alabama. Maybe it's a writing on the wall situation for Greg Schiano with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he gets the opportunity to coach the Texas Longhorns. He would jump on it. He's got an NFL background. He's coached at the University of Miami, so he has recruiting ties. He has all these different things you would want. I think if you want a big-name candidate, somebody who's going to be on top of things, because that's the thing here. In this era, even though you're Texas, you can't afford to just have a grandpa CEO coach anymore. Otherwise, you're going to constantly go 10-2, 9-3. You're always going to lose that 1 or 2 game every year unless you get somebody who is on top of everything, who is detail-oriented, somebody who is of a football mind, and that's the difference. I think they need to get a football-oriented guy. Yes, you have to be a fundraiser and all that stuff, but at the same time, you have to be a football coach because it's too competitive now. There's too many avenues in which lesser schools are finding ways to compete even when they don't have your resources. You look at a Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern. I know Northwestern didn't have a great year this season, but overall he's looked at as the Brad Stevens of college football. Other places, these smaller schools, the Baylors of the world, there's too many innovations and things going on right now that allow people with lesser resources to compete with you. You have to be just as cutting edge as they do. Otherwise, the playing field will be leveled.
You mentioned the things that go along with being the Texas head coach. One of the things that you have to understand, and Weldon, he laid it out there for you, you have to deal with the wine and cheese crowd. You have to raise funds. You have to be the governor of Texas. You have to be a guy that everybody likes, and that's why Mac Brown was so popular with so many people. As all indications are, he's a great man. At the end of the day, you have to win on the field. So I feel like there are a couple people who they'll probably go after. First, Nick Saban. Second, Nick Saban. If they can't get Nick Saban, one or two, whether that's, hey, Nick Saban, you want to come here? No? Oh, we'll give you $10 million a year. If they can't get him with multiple efforts, then they'll move on down the list. A guy a lot of people have heard about. Yesterday, it was reported that David Shaw is going to stay at Stanford. This is one of those things. He plans to stay.
Right.
Just because he plans to stay doesn't mean that when Texas throws a boatload of money at him, he's not going to say, yeah, I'll go coach at Texas. So David Shaw, I think, is a guy that a lot of people are talking about. Very well spoken, carries himself very well, and he wins a lot. I could see David Shaw being high on the list. I've heard a lot about Coach Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh at San Francisco. If he were to lose to Seattle again this year, and well, I mean, I know they beat them in the home and home. They both won at home. But if they were losing the playoffs, and he were to just say, you know what, it's NFL craps for the birds. I just see him as more of a competitive guy than that, and I feel like he would want to say, you know what, I'm a better coach than Pete Carroll. I want to win and take out Seattle, and all signs right now point to Seattle being a favorite to win the Super Bowl. So going and beating them would be a tall test in and of itself. But you hear names like Saban, and you mentioned Shianu, David Shaw, Jim Harbaugh. I want to throw one more name out there. This is with absolutely no information from anybody. It's just because I like the guy, and I feel like he's kind of gotten a raw deal where he is. He's been there more than a decade. He wins at a high level, recruits at a very high level, and it just seems like every year something happens to keep Mark Richt out of the national championship picture. I feel like he would be a great candidate for the Texas head coaching job. He'd be one of the few guys in the country I would root for. If Mark Richt went to Texas, I mean, I wouldn't root for Texas, but by any means, but I really like the guy. I like what he stands for, and I think he's a great coach. He's obviously a great recruiter, and go to Texas and you know put a staff together that can recruit, and they basically recruits itself. I feel like he would do a really good job, and it seems like to me, man, his things have run its course there in Georgia. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he were mentioned. Although I don't know his contract situation, and he may be just set there at Georgia and not want to go anywhere. But I can just see how all the wear and tear of every year, well, this is Rick's fault, he needs to go. I could see where if they came at him, he might just say, you know what, Texas is a better job.
I think so. I actually don't think that's bad at all. I think Mark Richt would be an excellent coach because I like Mark Richt, and I think, as you said, he's kind of taken some blame. You go back over the last few years, Mark Richt at Georgia, they had the couple of years stretch, including the game against Arkansas. Remember the 2010 drama game where Arkansas pulled it out. That season they went 6-7. Yeah, Greg Childs with a huge play. Childs, please. They go 6-7 that year. They lose to Central Florida in the bowl game, and it really wasn't until Aaron Murray came along to where Georgia became Georgia again. Okay, and then so now Aaron Murray, he's hurt. He's going to be gone. What's happening to Georgia football? Mark Richt could find himself back on the same hot seat he was on just a couple of years ago because remember, early in Aaron Murray's career, they lost that game to Boise State. And I think they lost the South Carolina game. They were 0-2 early in that year, and it's like, oh, get this guy out. Then they have America's easiest schedule. They win the rest of their games up until they lose to LSU in the SEC title game. Next year they have a good year, lose to Alabama in the SEC title game. But Mark Richt could find himself back on the hot seat. I actually like that because I think he may be a little bit burned out at Georgia. I think he could go to Texas and be a good fit if he has the juice and the batteries.
Yeah, obviously this is just spitballing, and it hadn't even been reported. He's not even on the radar of anybody nationally.
Hey, Brett Bielema wasn't on Arkansas.
That's exactly right, and that's sort of why I'm thinking that way. I would love to see Mark Richt at least mentioned as far as that goes because he is a great man from all indications, great recruiter, and I think he'd do a good job there at Texas.
I know some people in Arkansas that right now wish Brett Bielema would be mentioned at Texas.
Well, that's not going to happen. We'll look at the NFL and the Arkansas Razorbacks here in just a moment. We've got about 10 minutes of show left, and we got a lot of stuff to fit in.
RiverValleyLeader.com is the #1 local source for instant news in the River Valley, offering HD video and live streaming along with top-notch coverage of all the news and events around the area. The River Valley Leader is the only place to go for all the information you need. Check out the newest local business featured on the site, as well as police news and coverage from important meetings, along with the personal stories, all at one convenient click. Check out RiverValleyLeader.com.
Hi folks, Richard Roberts with Cogswell Motors in Russellville. We've been in business since 1949. A dealership doesn't stay in business that long under the same ownership unless you're doing something right, and that's taking care of customers. We have the largest selection of new Ford, Lincoln, Mazda, and pre-owned vehicles in the River Valley. So if you want the most for your trade, the best interest rate on financing, and the best price on a new or pre-owned automobile, come to Russell and see us. We're at 1900 East Main, or visit us on the web at cogswellmotors.com.
If you didn't count on KARK4 today this morning,
Here's what you missed.
updated news,
Police continue searching for suspects after a home intrusion overnight.
developing stories,
There's another piece of presidential history turning up here in Arkansas.
and weather and traffic on the force.
Friday night, Saturday morning will bring us our next chance of rain.
Every 10 minutes.
Around the clock.
Making your day easier.
So rise and shine and count on.
Count on.
Count on KRK4 today.
Over 69 years of treating you like family, Peters Family Living's main goal is customer service. That is their promise to their customers. They offer in-house financing on furniture and appliances and a 30-day money-back guarantee. For a friendly, no-pressure atmosphere, visit Peters Family Living today at 201 North Arkansas Avenue, Russellville. Online at petersfamilyliving.com or call 479-968-2929.
Today, there are more than 20 brands of cars being sold in America. So to be noticed, Ford and Cogswell Motors have to go further than anyone thought we could. How does Ford stand out above the crowd? Not just with plug-in vehicles like the new 2013 Ford Fusion Energy that gets a projected 100 miles per gallon equivalent, but also with a line of gas vehicles equipped with the innovative EcoBoost engines combining power and efficiency, plus a full measure of technologically advanced features. We invite you to stop into Cogswell Motors today. We go further than anyone thought we could, so that you can go further too.
All right, final segment of a Monday on the Sports Blitz. Thank you for joining us. Mark Freeman, Weldon Braxton, Maddie Lassiter in the Cogswell Motors studio. Appreciate Coach Cody Mann of the Russellville Cyclones visiting with us a little earlier. If you missed it, check out the replay that we'll post later on today, the December 16th replay. And mark this date in your calendar and in your mind when Mark Richt is the next head coach at the University of Texas.
December the 16th. We got it written down.
Yeah. Let's look real quickly at the NFL. I'm not mad at the Dallas Cowboys, who blew another lead. Yeah, I like it. They blew another lead. They were up, I guess, what was it, 26-3 or something like that on the Green Bay Packers. They fall 37-36. Tony Romo throws 2 interceptions. But a bigger story to me is the fact that Dallas does not have a defense. And, the New England Patriots lost. The St. Louis Rams took down New Orleans. And you've got Baltimore-Detroit tonight. But the big story of the weekend for us around here is the Dallas Cowboys losing 37-36, blowing another win, and snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory as they do so often. And I've just come to the point where I'm apathetic. Like, I know I was playing basketball last night, so I listened to the third quarter, or a little bit of the third quarter on the way to the gym, and honestly I thought Dallas was going to win, but when I picked up my phone and I saw they lost, it wasn't the same thing that's happened so many times over the past 16 years where I just got mad or I got sad. It was just like just an apathetic feel to me as a Dallas Cowboy fan, and I'll tell you why. Dallas is a C student. Over the past 16 years, they're a 500 team. Every week that they win, I come in here and I make the joke, well, they're going to lose next week. They'll find a way to lose. They win 2 in a row, they'll lose 2 in a row. They lose 2 in a row, they'll win 2 in a row. They're going to be 500 over the last 16 years. They are exactly 500. It's a C student. If that's your ceiling as a C student, and I'm from somebody who in high school was very good at getting C's, I was capable of doing better, but there are a lot of people who aren't, and they're C students. That's what they're going to be you can't get mad at a kid for getting a C when you know he's getting a C. I made this statement earlier, and I know it may sound inappropriate, but I don't mean any offense when I say this. The Dallas Cowboys are sort of a mentally handicapped. There's limitations that you can't do anything about. And I'm not trying to be rude when I say that. It's just one of those things where you don't get mad at somebody who doesn't have it all up here because they make a mistake. The Dallas Cowboys are put together with such flaws, glaring flaws, and I'll let you talk about what they are, that at this point I'm not even mad anymore because I know on a week-to-week basis, they're going to be here, they're going to be here, but they're always just going to be 500. That's just what they are.
I don't disagree with you, but I do understand the constant, Lord, and we know it, there is constant conversation about the Dallas Cowboys amongst fans. You look on Twitter, you look on Facebook, there's just all this talk from Dallas fans every week. Romo, Jerry, the defense, it just goes on in circles. And from a results standpoint, you're right. Dallas is a C student. There are a lot of C student type teams in the NFL. The only difference is those C students don't have a $1.2 billion stadium. They don't have an owner who's outspoken, who's declaring Super Bowls, and who's outspoken the face of the team on a weekly basis. They don't have the circus, the drama, and the soap opera that is the Dallas Cowboys. Right now, the Dallas Cowboys are the most interesting team to talk about because Jerry Jones keeps it that way. He makes sure they're always entertaining. He makes sure they're always making flashy, bold moves. You give Tony Romo $55 million, of course people are going to talk about that. That's going to be the rave. So when he does mess up, that $55 million is going to be brought up. I feel as though the Dallas Cowboys, to your point, Mark, they're not very good, but they do things to keep themselves relevant in conversation. And because they keep themselves relevant in conversation, their flaws are going to be more interesting to talk about. Their drama is going to be more interesting to talk about. And that's why I think you have the conversation. There are a lot of teams who have been 500, and then we don't talk about them nearly as much. Dallas, we do.
And that's part of the allure of the Dallas Cowboys. They build the billion-dollar playpen, as you mentioned, and it's not going to change. They're going to be in the conversation. They're America's team, love it or hate it, and they will be. I don't know if it's going to be forever, but it's definitely going to be as long as Jerry Jones is around. And I made the comment in pre-show prep that there's one way, and there's really two, but there's one way that the Dallas Cowboys will get out of the doldrums that they have been in for the past couple decades, and that's for Jerry Jones to sell the team. And it's not going to happen any other way because his personality is such that he's not going to take his hands off. He's not. If he hired a GM, the GM would make one decision he didn't like, he'd get rid of him.
Right.
He's his own GM. His son is a president or whatever his son's doing over there. His son-in-law is wiping his glass. I mean, they've just got a jacked up system from top to bottom organization, and the only way, short of death, that Jerry Jones is going to take his hand off is to just sell the team. He's not going to do it.
He's not going to do it.
So we're stuck.
And you look at these moves, Monte Kiffin, who else does that move reek of than Jerry Jones? I mean, Jason Garrett, Lord knows he definitely deserves some blame as well. But do you think Jason Garrett said, I want Monte Kiffin, please let me hire Monte Kiffin? I highly doubt that happened. Monte Kiffin, great contributor to the game of football. Well, he's 73 years old. It's time for him to sit down. This is one of the worst defenses in the history of the NFL. And all these moves you see Jerry Jones, his hands are all over him. That's why, Mark, we said this before, they couldn't hire a great coach if they wanted to. Let's say, for some reason, a Mike Tomlin or a John Gruden, just any of the names that people throw out when Dallas comes up, Bill Cowher. Those coaches aren't working for Jerry Jones. There'd be no way they'd be willing to work. So you're not going to get a head coach anyway. You're going to get the Jason Garretts of the world, and then you can sit up and complain about Jason Garrett, but just understand you're not going to get anything better than him under the current circumstances.
Now, Bill Parcells wanted to shop for the groceries, and he had the team going in a direction for a little while, and now it seems that Jerry Jones has settled into, I like Jason Garrett. He'll do exactly what I want him to do. And then I think it's hilarious when he comes out and says, Jason Garrett will be the head coach next year. You can take that to the bank. Well, I'd hope we can take what the owner and GM say to the bank. My goodness, if you say he's going to, you're the guy making the decision. You don't have to lie. Just don't say anything if you're going to fire him. When he says he's going to be back, I believe him. And as long as he'll let him pull the punches for him, as long as Jason Garrett's letting, which obviously he doesn't have any choice if he wants to stay as the head coach, be Jerry Jones' puppet, he'll be around. And I don't know how long it's going to take before the heat gets to Jerry Jones, but 8-8 apparently is good enough for him. So we'll look at the NFL throughout the week. Wednesday we'll give you our power rankings, but as we run out of time, we need to make mention of the Hogs basketball team. As we switch gears real quickly, they're taking on Tennessee Martin Thursday at 7 o'clock. It's been a week between games. They played Thursday against Savannah State. They played a terrible first half. Got a big second half. As Michael Qualls came back into the game, probably a lot of people would agree with me. He's their best player. Good game, 21 points, career high from Kai Madden in a 72-43 win over Savannah State. It has them projected right now, and this is ESPN bracketology, to be an 11 seed in the NCAA tournament. Obviously, I realize it's really early.
It is really early, Mark. 11 seed, the only thing that tells me is you can easily play your way out. But at least you are in the field. You can play your way up. Yeah, I'm looking for a much better start from Arkansas basketball. Against Savannah State, that was horrible. 20-something points in the first half, jacking up shots, turnovers, all of that. I want to see that cleaned up early. I want to see Arkansas get after Tennessee Martin, right? Tennessee Martin defensively, force some turnovers, get this thing going, because SEC play is right around the corner. When it gets here, it's not going to be easy. Yes, the SEC is down, but you still have quality teams on a nightly basis. Obviously, you're playing a little bit bigger schedule this year, so it's going to be an important time for Arkansas in these non-conference games.
Oh, it definitely will be. And as we leave you today, I talked about the bad news of Arkansas Razorback football. We try not to dwell on that, so we'll leave it for very short conversation. Wide receiver Jared Cornelius, Shreveport Evangel, wide receiver commit of the University of Arkansas, has flipped his commitment to TCU. And also, it's a bittersweet day for Charlie Partridge, an Arkansas defensive line coach who has agreed to become the head coach of the Florida Atlantic University. 5 years, $2.76 million. It's a big loss for the University of Arkansas as a defensive line coach. That's the best really unit on the entire roster this year, and he's the reason that Alex Collins is an Arkansas Razorback. So it's a big win for his career, a loss for the University of Arkansas.
Yeah, and those ties to Florida is what helped him get that FAU job, his ability to go down there and recruit. He's already made it clear that he plans on gaining a lot of other great recruiters on his staff as well, so we do wish him the best. Arkansas Razorback recruiting, Mark, I know you touched on this on Facebook. I saw maybe this is something we can get into on Wednesday about what's going on with Arkansas recruiting, what's going on with that whole situation, because I think there's a great conversation to be had.
Yeah, there's sort of a philosophical issue that is coming up right now as far as players not wanting to play in this system and not wanting to be a part of a rebuilding process. I feel like, I know Coach Bielema hates to do this, I feel like you go the JUCO route and you get as good as you can as quickly as you can, and then you go
at least a few
fill
more
in.
JUCOs.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like he did that last year and it backfired on him. That may be why he doesn't want to do it as much this year. But go get as many guys as you can get who can come in and play immediately, and then fill in with the freshman recruits, high school recruits that you can develop. And obviously they've done a good job of developing players. I saw a picture the other day, and I know Russell Wilson spent his whole career before Wisconsin at NC State, but I saw a picture last year from the Pro Bowl, and they had 4 guys. They had J.J. Watt, they had an offensive lineman, they had Russell Wilson, and then somebody else in a picture. There were 4 former Wisconsin Badgers that had been developed into NFL Pro Bowlers. So I know that Brett Bielema and his staff have had the experience doing it in the past, and I feel like they can get it done here, but it's just going to be a longer road than we imagined.
It is, and that's what I think what fans have to remember. It's funny, when Brett Bielema gets the job, you all this talk about how he developed players, he did more with that, did more with less. After a 3-9 frustrating season and after some bad things in recruiting, those things seem to have faded away, but those facts still remain. Even though we're not as happy with him, those facts are the same. What he did at Wisconsin is still there.
All right, we've got our NFL Power Rankings, a little more Hog Talk on Wednesday. Lots of stuff that we'll get to. We appreciate you taking time to join us today. If you came on late, watch our replay that'll come out later on today. For Weldon and Maddie, I'm Mark. So long. We'll see you at 11 o'clock on Wednesday at rivervalleyleader.com.